Virtual Grip Network and PGRL's Premier Series welcomes you to the inaugural Todd Kirkwood Memorial 200 from Richmond Raceway. I'm Austin Belkey, joined in the booth by J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe, with our director Trevor Greenfield in the production trailer. J.R., we're back to short track racing. We're going to crown a champion tonight, the second champion of the PGRL on Virtual Grip Network. But first, what can you tell us about Richmond?
Well, Austin, Richmond Raceway is a 3/4 mile D-shaped oval that only has 14 degrees of banking in the corners. However, this place is known to be a driver's track and can produce some great side-by-side racing, especially if we get some long runs going here tonight. The Gen 7 car setup seemed to be just a little bit tight entering the corners, so these guys are going to have to be on top of that and not overdrive the entry here. Also, as they start to put that throttle down, they're going to experience wheel spin from those rear tires. We've got a lot of horsepower in these cup cars. This means that these drivers who control the throttle the best are probably going to be the ones up front tonight. Having said that, I know it sounds very easy to just say control that throttle and prevent the tire spin, but when you're trying to pass someone here, you will have to use more throttle than what you prefer to do. That in return will wear your tires out, so these guys have to be very efficient when they're making those passes tonight and get them done quickly. One more thing to watch for tonight. There will be some shifting here more than likely. Driven these cars, I've seen how they drive on these straightaways. Some of these guys will be shifting, especially down the front stretch from 4th to 5th gear. Some may be shifting multiple times, and then some of these guys may not be shifting at all. And the reason for that is because of tire spin. So some of these guys may be using that as a strategy to save those rear tires. It's just one more element that they're going to have to pay attention to, because more engine revs equals a greater chance of spinning these rear tires. These guys will be battling this stuff all night long. But once again, this is a driver's track, and the driver can make up for what the car is lacking here. It should produce some really great racing. It's a great place to end the season here tonight, Austin.
Thanks, JR. And Kenny, one of the more interesting parts about Richmond Raceway is that tricky entrance to pit road. We saw Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just this past weekend go wide on pit entry, come up the track into title chase contender Martin Truex Jr. So there's a lot of other issues to watch out for.
Yeah, the pit entry here is pretty much blind. You have to get down onto that apron and make sure you don't come back up onto the track. It's a sharp left turn. And while we're at it, why don't we hit up the keys to the race? That pit entry is obviously one of them. Another key to the race is that throttle control that JR was talking about. But the other thing is going to be pitting and tire strategy. 10 total sets are in the pits, which is plenty for a 200-lap race. However, looks like we're going to have about 3-ish pit stops for fuel, but could have plenty more than that based on tire wear. The tire wear is pretty predominant here, and track position is going to be key, but you can make up spots if you decide to put on 4 fresh tires. So I think teams are going to be aggressive on their pit strategy and want to put on tires as quickly as possible. But I'll be really interested to see if we have a long green flag run, as we saw like in the Real Cup race. Do drivers choose to kind of divide the race up into more pit stops, but faster time on track with fresher tires, or do they stretch it out and run on the old tires but stay out on track and not have to go laps down through a pit stop?
Thanks, Kenny. It's going to be really interesting, too, to kind of see who Lady Luck sides with, because as we saw and continue to see when these guys decide to split up a 1-stop into a 2-stop and stuff like that, is if the caution falls at the wrong time for certain drivers, it can fall at the right time for some others and really shake things up, as you see Woody Mahan go for a spin off of turn 4. Really easy to loop the car there, JR.
Yeah, it's extremely easy too, and you're going to see guys run different lines here. Like I said, it's a driver's track. They're going to be moving around. You're going to have to if you want to make those passes. But if you get too low in some of these corners here and apply too much throttle, the thing that we just saw on screen is going to happen. You're going to go for a spin.
Thanks, JR. And if you were a fan with a keen eye at home, someone who had seen the schedule of this second season here beforehand, you would realize it wasn't always called the Todd Kirkwood Memorial 200. For those of you that don't know, Todd passed away very recently. And if you don't know much about him, he was a trucker, a husband, a father of 3. He passed away last Friday at the ripe old age of 43, so definitely on the younger side of things. He was the founder of Pixelated Sim Sports, which it was an iRacing team that competed in the Pretty Good Racing League. He was often the first to chip in when someone needed sponsorship and loved creating logos for the iRacing community. Todd was a friend to many in the Pretty Good Racing League and will be deeply missed. So that's why, in honor of him, you see so many people here racing with Todd on the car. And you can see in memory of Jeffrey Harden showing off some Todd Kirkwood love on the side and front end of that number 3 machine. Enough with the pre-race festivities. It's time to go through the starting grid for tonight's affair. James Krahula should be starting on pole. We'll see if he pops into the server. There he is. Isaiah Dupree lines up to his outside. Joe Alberico rolls off in 3rd, followed by Pete Baskins, who starts in 4th. Grant Brown rolls off in 5th, followed by Jeff Ward, who starts in 6th. John Wilco will roll off 7th, followed by Mark Herzog in 8th. Joe Hassert and Rich Jetty complete the top 10 rounding spots. Greg O'Barry starts in 11th, followed by Thomas George in 12th. Adam Jerski starts in 13th, followed by Michael Krobach, who starts to his outside in 14th. Mike Rasmus rolls off in 15th, followed by Drew Carroll, who starts in 16th. Starting in 17th is Brian Yazik. Cody Erdman starts in 18th. Woody Mahan starts in 19th. And Norm Pelletier starts in 20th.
Starting in 21st place tonight is Ricky Harden driving that 3 car. Jonathan Cogswell will roll off in 22nd place. Starting in 23rd is Jordan Harnish. And rounding out the field, starting in 24th place tonight, is your last season's champion, Scott Eckridge.
Yep, and for those of you at home that don't know how the starting grid is organized for each race, it is a complete inversion of the finishing results from the last one, with, of course, the main exception of Scott Eckridge. Because he's the defending series champion, he starts at the back of the field for 2 seasons in a row, and whoever wins the championship tonight will then start at the back of the field for 2 seasons in a row after that. So far, it looks like it is going to be, I believe, Jeff Ward, guys.
Yeah, Jeff Ward and Scott Eckridge both pretty fast in practice, as they always are, but some pretty even times. Carroll was another one fast in practice. I'll be keeping an eye on him.
Yeah, Jeff Ward. The current math says as long as he finishes in about the top 20, he will clinch the title. So pretty comfortable position to be in. Not that many cars showing up, so going to have quite a bit of bad luck before the end if anyone wants to catch him and take that title out of his hands. So we'll see what Jeff can do here. You can see a couple drivers starting down on pit road. One of those, of course, is John Wilco, the driver with many a scheme of Epcot, and he designs them all by himself. So it's always cool to see what he brings to the track each and every week.
Yeah, definitely very jealous of those paint schemes, Austin. He does a fantastic job and has plenty of them. So great to see those on track each and every week. They're rolling into turn 4 here, getting ready to start this race.
Yeah, you can see James Krahula also honoring Todd Kirkwood. The iRacing pace car makes a sharp turn down pit road. Green flag flies. I think that was a bit earlier than anyone had anticipated. But regardless, you can see James Krahula giving that Todd Kirkwood memorial scheme a pretty good run here into turn 1. He's going to hook up on him. You can see Jeff Ward already a little bit high, though, through turns 1 and 2.
It's a little bit lucky there, kind of entered turn 1 almost 3 wide. He had to check up to avoid any contact there. He's gotten back to the bottom of the track and kind of settling himself back in here to get going again.
Yeah, you can see Pete Baskets and Grant Brown, the 2 Patriot Media Marketing Services drivers, they're head to toe. You can see just behind Big Joe Hassert, and then you got champion hopeful Jeff Ward, as you see Pete Baskets, gets in the wall just a little bit.
See Greg O'Barry trying to make a move off of turn 4 here. He was able to do the over-under on Alberico coming out of the corner, but Alberico's going to have that outside line. We'll have to see if he tries to race him here. I think he's going to try to get back in line, Austin.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to slot back in line there just ahead of Jeff Ward. They're still 2 wide behind him, though. Joe Hassert on the outside, Grant Brown on the inside, Adam Jerski looking to just follow through whoever wins this battle. And then behind those 2 drivers is another 2 wide battle. Mark Herzog looks to win that one for 10th place.
And Austin, I know we talk about Jeff Ward being a pretty calm driver, having a Jeff Ward kind of race, moving through the field slowly. But I think tonight he's going to try to go to the front as quickly as possible. If for nothing else, just trying to stay out of the trouble that can happen on this short track. You can get caught up in someone else's accident so easily here.
Absolutely, Kenny. It's so important to be in charge and kind of command this race the way you'd like it to go.
Definitely. I mean, you really want to be up towards the front, but it is worth something to kind of let things play out a little bit, and so that you can kind of approach drivers one by one. I usually try to keep my cool here at the beginning of these races and really try to find myself in a rhythm. I find Richmond to be a really good rhythm racetrack. You just hope for a long enough green flag run to be able to start that rhythm and put together some good laps. But a few drivers have definitely settled in. I noticed earlier Grant Brown, he had some problems with blinking going into turn 1 on lap 1. He was caught 3 wide, and luckily his connection has been restored. Hasn't had any problems since then. But that was a really sketchy moment going into turn 1. Definitely what you don't want to deal with at the beginning of a race at Richmond, blinking in and out like that.
You can see Adam Jersey looking to make a pass on the inside there, completes that thing. Almost has it done on Joe Alberico. He's finally able to clear up in front of Joe going down the front stretch. And now Joe's got to look out because he's got the 41 car, Grant Brown, looking at his inside. And just behind him, old Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus.
Yeah, Mike's definitely going to be coming to the front tonight. He's another driver that, like you said, very consistent. He wants to end this season off really well because I know that he's looking forward to season 3, trying to get a better run going. He's had great runs, but not had a whole lot of luck. He wants to change that going into next season.
He's missed quite a few races as well. He started this season out so strong. Started on pole, led most of the laps, and then went on to win one of the earlier races at Charlotte. So definitely was, one of the championship hopefuls, but he hasn't quite had the season to back up that first race's performance. Trevor, if we could look here just for 1 second, I'd like to take a look at the 40 car, Pete Baskins. He's been charging the corners pretty hard, drifting up a lane. Kenny J, that car just not handling to his liking, especially in turn 3 the last couple laps. He just goes super wide.
Yeah, and you can actually see him off of turn 2 getting a lot of wheel spin, probably putting more wheel into it than he wants to because of the overdriving of the entry, and in return that car is doing a push loose as he gets on the throttle, and it's not helping his situation at all. It's just going to make it worse.
Yep, and the more he continues to fight this, the more he lets Scott Eckridge get closer and closer. You can see that black, back to black, 70 car. Scott Eckridge just behind him. No more. We're riding with that golden car that Scott had debuted last season at Darlington, the race where he went on to become the Season 1 champion this year.
A few drivers running some different paint schemes and some different cars. Our pole sitter, James Krahula, actually switched to a Ford. Oh, we have a wreck on the backstretch, guys.
Oh, Thomas George involved. Oh, Pete Baskins goes in there. Jonathan Cogswell. This was a big one.
Yeah, several drivers getting involved. And this is exactly what we talked about with Jeff Ward wanting to go to the front because an accident can happen. There's very little room to maneuver and try to get around these things. Several people getting caught up in this that were not in the initial contact.
Well, Kenny, I was kind of surprised too. Your keys to victory, one of them wasn't avoid the big ones. Sometimes at Richmond, it's usually in the spring race or the fall race. Now spring and summer, there's always a big wreck. We saw that in 2016. There was a couple even back to 2017, 18, and 19. You just saw cars all over the shop going down the backstretch.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely a hazard, especially on the backstretch with there being walls on either side of you. You do have a little bit of an apron there, but you see on the replay, George kind of coming back across the track and then gets hit multiple times. Once by Brian Yazik, who was he's the other title hopeful, remember, and last week's winner as well. He's going to have some pretty hefty damage. And you see there the 40 car coming by, smacking into the 2 as well. There's just not a whole lot of places to go when a car is sprawled across the track like that on the backstretch.
Certainly not with the concrete walls on both sides of the straightaway. Adam Jersey comes up pit road. Mike Rasmus, a lot of cars down there getting 4 fresh feel goods.
It looks like a little over half of the field decided to come down and pit, but Rich Jetty, it looks like Rich Jetty is in as well, but looks like the top 7 or so have stayed out on track, so we'll see how that plays out. We've only run 13 or so laps, But I actually kind of like the idea of staying out just to kind of get a feel for what older tires might do, to see if maybe you could try that out later in the race. Because if it doesn't work out right now, you can recover from it. It's not too late.
Well, it's also really hard to pass here at Richmond Raceway too. So even if you are on the older tires, you can put up a pretty good fight, and especially if you're in the top 5 or so, you've got some other cars behind you that those guys with the fresh tires have to go through before they get up to you. But I'd just like to, for one moment, talk about what would have been the race's normal sponsor. Patriot Media and Marketing Services will be donating $1 per car in attendance tonight to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, the original beneficiary of the race before Todd's passing. So $1 extra we donated per car running Patriot Media scheme. Also, the winner of the race earns some iRacing credits in the dollar amount equal to their starting spot, thanks to drivertees.com. Alternatively, that driver can pay it forward and pass their donation along to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Tonight is made possible by Grant Brown, the driver of the 41 car, and his company, Patriot Media and Marketing Services. We'd like to thank them again. And if you don't know, muscular dystrophy, one of those diseases that progressively gets worse through someone's lifetime. So they do a lot to try and help end that by donating money to the research. But regardless, the iRacing pace car pulls down pit road. James Kahula once again off to an amazing start, gapping there. Grego Berry. Jeff Ward now makes his way into the top 3.
I saw that Barry had this race on circled on his calendar, and he's showing why. He's really showing some nice speed, up already from 11th to 2nd, so showing good speed early on.
Yeah, he's hounding James Kahula right now for that top spot. Looking to the inside here into turn 1.
Yeah, Greg had a good run here last season, so yeah, like you said, Kenny, he was definitely looking forward to coming back here, and he's going to try to get this lead away from James Kahula as they go into turn 3.
Yeah, he's going to send that car down to the bottom, lifts it up from the apron about a half a car width. James is going to give him room, and now Jeff Ward gets to the inside of James Kahula.
Yeah, it looks like James is going to fight him just a little bit through turns 1 and 2 here. He knows he doesn't want to keep falling backwards. It's hard to lose multiple positions in one lap, Austin, but I think he's going to give way here and try to get in behind Jeff Ward.
Yep, he's going to slot down, and he really has to, because you don't want to be freight trained on the outside, especially with older tires. You can pinch the guy off down on the inside and force him to use up his rear tires, but of course you'd really not rather have to fight too wide with someone. Just behind these guys, though, is, Adam Jersky goes into the wall. He was the first car on fresh tires.
Yeah, I was just about to say Jersky was that first driver on fresh tires trying to make a charge through the field, and had it coming together with Grant Brown on the exit of turn 2. It was almost a 3 wide situation, not quite, but yeah, it looks like Grant on the outside of Adam gets loose, and they come together. And again, Austin, like what you were talking about, another big one down the backstretch.
Yeah, and guys, we didn't talk about it at the beginning of the show, but turn 2 really flattens out. You know, we go from 14 degrees of banking to nothing. The guy on the outside typically gets a little bit loose on throttle, and the guy on the inside typically pushes out just a little bit. We saw Grant get loose there, but that's 2 conditions that can happen outside of turn 2, and that's normally going to be the problem area on the track for where we're going to see wrecks happen.
We're going to go side by side here in just a couple seconds, so you won't miss a second of the action. Of course, we're under caution, so we'll be right back after these messages. We're going to keep playing here the replays of what brought up the caution. This is looking on from Joe Alberico's standpoint. Don't click that mouse. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Todd Kirkwood Memorial 200 at Richmond Raceway. You're watching the Virtual Grip Network and the presentation of the Pretty Good Racing League. This is the championship finale. Jeff Ward pretty much locked in here as long as he doesn't get into too much trouble before the end of this race. We're underneath our second caution of the day. A lot of cars, including James Krahula. He's the first one in the field, of course, paying respect to Todd Kirkwood just passed last Friday. So this race honoring him. When lap 86 rolls around, we are going to go completely silent on the broadcast to honor Todd, as well as all the drivers are going to do that in their driver chat in the sim. You can see your top 5 currently: Greg O'Barry, James Krahula, Mark Hertzog, Michael Krobach, Cody Erdman. Rounding out the top 10 is Jonathan Cogswell, Ricky Harden, Jordan Harnish, Brian Yazik, and Joe Hassert. So lots of fast guys up there. Some of the fast guys you might know about: Jeff Ward currently in 12th, Scott Eckridge in 13th. So definitely a lot of speed up and down through the field, though, guys. We've had some early wrecks in this race.
So I am surprised that under that caution, we had drivers pit on lap 13, but we also had almost half the field pit again on that last caution, and we had only run just a few laps. And also Mike Rasmus is now coming in again and is taking tires once again, so he'll be towards the back of the field. So these drivers really not being afraid to use up their sets of tires. Again, they have 10 sets in the pits, so plenty to use up.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes too, because the more cautions we have at the beginning of this race, the less likely they are to happen at the end. So it doesn't really matter if you use up your tires. Greg O'Barry restarts the race from the bottom lane, gets a pretty sizable lead there over James Krahula, and you can see they're already 3 wide as they enter turn 1 and 2.
Almost 3 wide as they enter turn 1. It's a place that a lot of drivers want to try to dive in there and get a position, especially on restarts. They thought a little bit better of it and kind of got double filed out. Looks like Greg O'Barry's going to continue to lead, with James Krahula being able to pull away from 3rd place right now.
Yeah, now you got Mark Hertzog there looking to the inside of Michael Krobach in the 72 car, then Jonathan Cogswell on the outside of Cody Erdman.
Remember, Cogswell was involved in that last wreck. He got nipped in the left rear and spun around but didn't hit anything, and here he is up in the top 10.
Yeah, obviously he's not too worried about how those tires are going to hold up after going for that spin. James Krahula, though, hasn't pit once in this race, nor has Greg O'Barry. Whoa, 2 cars going for a synchronized spin. Cody Erdman, Mark Hertzog. Oh, you can see Scott Eckridge there getting a piece too, as did Jeff Ward.
Yeah, and that's the deal with cautions, breeding cautions. Jeff was back in that pack. He didn't get too much damage, it doesn't look like here, but definitely getting caught up in that.
Starting to look like the Richmond we had earlier on in this season, where there was just caution after caution after caution, and I can't really put the blame on either driver there. I mean, Cody had his nose to the inside. I feel like Mark could have left him a little bit more space, but it's hard to tell what both the lines were going to look like, JR.
We're going to watch on board of Cody's replay here. He's just one of those drivers that gets into turn 1 really well. He takes more of that straighter line approach, and he was doing it lap after lap. You know he's doing it. You can see him when he's racing around you there, and Mark kind of took a traditional line in. At the same time, there was a car on the outside, so they were kind of 3 wide there. Really just a coming together. Like you said, I don't know that that's anyone's particular fault right there.
I will say it was a particularly late move, but like you said, he's been kind of doing that pretty often. Of course, turn 1, lots of guys have different lift points and brake points as you go into there, so definitely a lot of places you can go this riding on board with your Daytona winner, Norm Pelletier. Barely doesn't get it checked up enough in time, slams into the back there, I believe, Mike Rasmus.
I remember, guys, that Hertzog was one of the drivers who hadn't pitted yet in this race. Erdman pitted on lap 13, so his tires were a little bit fresher and maybe had a little bit more general pace as well than the 57 car. But on these restarts, when you're on the bottom, especially if you're having to play defense like that, you have to make sure you get down to the bottom as quickly as possible and really ride that yellow line right from the get-go on entry to turn 1. If you leave that space open, especially on the restart, it's going to really be a tempting opening for a driver like Erdman to stick his nose in there.
crucially, though, for Jeff Ward, he moves himself up into the 4th position, and that's closer to where you want to be if there continue to be any wrecks here tonight. See a lot of guys going laps down. Ricky Harden has left the session, so he'll be one of those drivers. Pete Baskins has also left the session. So for Jeff Ward, it continues to be a night that favors him.
Yeah, it definitely does. His guys continued to drop out. Like we said, he only needed about a top 20 finish here to lock it up, so he's looking very good right now. There's only 20 cars on the lead lap. If he can keep his car running the rest of the night, he will be in good shape.
That, of course, too, you know, he needs to finish at least in the top 20, and that's if his competition wins the race. And Brian Yazik, not doing a bad job. He's up in 3rd place, but obviously, you know, you kind of need him to just go ahead and dominate the race and win the thing. So it's looking like Jeff Ward's got this championship all wrapped up. But, of course, knock on wood or glass, whatever you'd prefer.
And Yazik actually has damage on his car. He was involved, I think it was two or three cautions ago.
Caution.
Yeah, so he's up there, but he does have a little bit of damage. He pitted on lap 13, and it was a 36-second stop, so he obviously had some damage repair to do. So you can get away with a little bit of damage at a place like Richmond, but you don't want to make it a habit. And remember, no fast repairs for these drivers.
Yeah, Brian's got damage on both the left and right side of that car.
Yeah, the only good thing about that right side damage is it looks like the front end's pretty level at the bottom, but where he does have the dented in portion of that right front fender, it's kind of letting that right front tire have some visibility, and that's going to allow some air on that tire, maybe cool it down.
Yeah, we've seen a couple guys, Martin Truex Jr. at the end of 2019, Taylor Earnhardt Jr. back when they raced the Generation 4 cars at Martinsville, allow that right front tire to breathe a little more. You're basically got that thing on rails. iRacing pace car pulls back down pit road. See Greg O'Berry fires off almost immediately. He's got about a 3-car length lead as we ride on board with Brian Yazik as they go down into turn 1. There's Jeff Ward on the outside.
Jeff making sure he gave some nice room to Brian there. Brian kind of using that diamond type line, so good awareness by Jeff Ward there. But Brian's going to go for the lead here. I mean, he's going for 2nd place right now. Like you said, it's going to be very hard for him to try to win this championship tonight, but the one thing he does want to do is do what he can control, and that's try to go out and win this race and get the most points.
Yep, that's all you can do is go out there and try to earn yourself the most points, and maybe not be mean and hope for a bad night for someone else, but maybe just hope for a night that favors yourself so you can come away with the Season 2 championship of 2022.
And as always, as you go into the next season, you want to end the previous season on a high note. You want to have some momentum going into the next season to keep you moving forward. That's what a lot of these guys are trying to do tonight, get next season going.
Boy, James Kahula continues to fall further and further back into the pack as you see drivers with newer and newer tires as he continues to get past and drop through the field. Just most recently getting passed by Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus. Now you got the 56 car of Norm Pelletier looking at his inside. Norm also sporting a Todd Kirkwood Memoriam car.
Yeah, it's really great to see these guys showing their appreciation to Todd Kirkwood and the things that he did for this league. This is one thing that's really great about a league like this. It shows that it's not just a place for people to come and compete with one another. It is a community, and these drivers really have feelings toward one another. They make great relationships in this racing league. And as you can see on screen, Norm showing that Todd Kirkwood scheme tonight.
Yeah, especially too. I mean, it's really young, and to pass away only at age 43. So to do that is, I'm sure, a shock to the community, and these guys obviously feeling that pain right now.
Yeah, it's not easy at all. Like I said, it's a community. It becomes a family, and you grow relationships with these guys. It may be people that you never meet, but you talk to them constantly, and they become friends and family. That community grows, and it becomes really, really hard when you lose one of those people.
Also, remember, guys, his passing on Friday, these guys, look how many drivers have turned around and made special paint schemes just in a few days and made some good professional-looking logos and put this whole event together, and renamed it and all that stuff. So a lot of work has gone in to kind of memorializing this. So they've all done a really good job.
You see two Todd Kirkwood cars racing each other. That's the 22 car, Jordan Harnish, and the 56 of Norm Pelletier. It's about 3 cars back behind Woody Mahan. Woody just put on a phenomenal pass there, textbook around James Cahula. This is the 22 of Jordan Harnish. To his outside there, you can just barely see, not from this angle, but Norm Pelletier to his outside. So pretty cool down to see 3 Todd Kirkwood cars right next to each other.
Very cool to see on track as these guys continue to battle one another. And yeah, like you said, Kenny, these guys did a lot very quickly in order to put this event on. And it just shows the dedication that these guys have and the talent that they have. We watch them on screen every week race, and we see the talent there, but they also have painting talent. They also have talent in trying to get things broadcasted and done correctly.
Continues to be a hornet's nest around here. This is the battle for about 8th position on back. Mark Herzog continues to get closer and closer to these drivers. There's Scott Eckridge in the 70 car poking his nose into the picture.
Yeah, Scott's continuing to move forward. He's a little bit off cycle on pit strategy. He kind of pitted at a little bit different time, so he's up to 12th place right now, but we expect him to continue to move forward here as these laps count down, especially if we go on a long green flag run.
Yep, you're going to see Norm Pelletier use the 4 car James Cahula as a pick. Of course, all these drivers but James on quite a bit fresher tires than he.
You guys, we actually just saw a pass for the lead. I know the racing's been so good in the mid-pack, but Brian Yazik has taken the lead away from Greg O'Berry. He held it for quite some time on, remember, those original tires. He's now being challenged for 3rd place by Rasmus, but you see there Yazik in the lead, but being pressured by Jeff Ward, and Ward has about 8 lap fresher tires than he. Here's a replay there of the original pass for the lead. Thanks, Trevor, for getting us that replay.
JR,
yep.
That's a textbook pass right there.
Yeah, exactly. Brian doing a great job to get a run up off of turn 2, getting to the inside, and then once he's got that inside, as long as he gets good traction off of turn 4, he's going to be able to make that pass entering 1 like you saw there. Jeff Ward doing a great job of seeing what was happening and being able to put himself in a position to follow him through.
Yeah, taking advantage of that opportunity and realizing when someone is just a little bit off their game and going to pounce. Kenny, you mentioned that quite frequently. And boy, isn't this how you'd prefer every championship to come down? The 2 heavyweight title contenders duking it out there.
Yeah, and at least, you know, in Jeff Ward's perspective, you know, he can kind of control his own destiny here. He just needs to have a solid race, or even a mediocre race will be good enough. So what he's doing right now, just kind of riding in behind Yazik, you know, is perfectly good enough for what he needs. And in Yazik's mindset, you know, he just has to go out and win this race. That's all he can really do. And he's at least putting himself in a position here, good track position out in front, and extending his advantage over 3rd place, at least for a time, although Rasmus might be starting to run them down a bit, but he's doing all he can right now.
Scott Eckridge continues to make his way up through the field. As you can see, Mr. Consistency showing why he got that nickname. Currently running on the last step of the podium. You see Jeff Ward up in front of these 2 guys, trying to do the crossover, the old high in, low out down the back straightaway. Not looking to make a move to the inside this time by, but he's just absolutely hounding the rear bumper of that 55 car.
Jeff is extremely good getting into the corners, especially into turn 3. He's making up a lot of time. But the one thing that Brian is really doing well, you can watch as we're on board here, he's exiting the corners really low and straight. That's going to allow him to get a good amount of bite from those rear tires, get a good run down the straightaway, but also allow him to save his tires better than what some of these other guys are doing by exiting the corner higher.
Yeah, the more Jeff Ward is kind of held up there by Brian Yazik, the more Mike Rasmus is allowed to catch these 2 drivers. You saw riding aboard with Mike. He was gaining a little bit of time lap by lap, so we'll see how long it takes for him to get up to the rear bumper of the 9 car. Back behind Mike is Cody Erdman, and then rounding out your top 5, Woody Mahan. Really strong night for Woody.
Woody definitely wanting to end this season on a high note. He's had probably a lot of bad luck, a lot more bad luck than anybody else, I would say, in this series. But he has speed each and every week, so he's wanting to get a good finish, wanting to go into the next season knowing, hey, I can contend for that title.
Certainly, Woody, when he has good runs, he has phenomenal runs, but there's usually something in the middle to late part of the race that just takes him out of contention. Usually it's not his fault. It's somebody has a wreck 10 feet in front of him, and he can't avoid him. Looking to the inside here at Cody Erdman. We'll see what he can do to get this pass done.
He's the first driver that pitted on lap 29, so Rasmus pitted on 27, so they're not too different of tires, but Woody's one of the first drivers who's got the freshest rubber.
See Michael Krobach now looking to the inside here of Greg O'Berry. Greg continues to fall through the field. Greg has yet to stop and take on a different set of tires, so currently he's got just about the oldest in the field along with James Carula. Both those drivers have not pit a single time, so that's why you can see the speed disparity between those drivers and everyone else.
Definitely not what Greg wanted, having a longer run that we've gotten this last time after the green flag fell. So I think he definitely wanted a couple more short runs. He'd come in and gotten tires and been on an even playing field with some of these guys. We see Michael Krobach getting loose off of turn 2, but yeah, so far has not happened. Greg's continuing to do a good job. He just does not have the tires that all these other guys have currently.
Well, JR, explain for the folks at home why he would rather have a caution that comes out in a good amount of time and not too long away from when everyone else got their tires.
Yes, so the big thing is he would have liked to have seen like a 15-lap run, so he would have held his track position or only lost a couple of spots, have another caution come out, and then he's going to have to come in and get tires, but so is everybody else, because you're already going to lose a little over a half a second a lap. With your lap times on those tires that only have 15 laps on them. So that would have evened things out for him. He would have been able to save a set of tires, which is probably what he's trying to do in case we get some weird cautions at the end. But like we said earlier in the broadcast, they have a lot of sets of tires here tonight. Probably would have been best just to have pitted early with everybody else.
Yeah, more than 10 sets actually down on pit road for these guys to take on as the race continues. James Carula continues to fall back into 16th place, and as you're riding on board with one of the latest views, you saw Greg O'Berry being caught by Scott Eckridge. This is the ride though on board Jeff Ward's machine. This is on top of the roof. As you look out over the hood of this 9 machine, just continues to hound the rear end of the Brian Yazik machine.
Yeah, I love watching the onboard here with Jeff Ward as he's approaching Brian through these corners. Jeff running a different line. We can see Brian starting to spin the tires a little bit up off of turn 2. But look at the different lines that Jeff is running. He's running lower through turn 3. He was running a little bit higher through 1 and 2, trying to arc it and get that low run up off the corner to do a crossover move. And you have to do these things when you're racing people on a short track like this. If you continue to run the exact same lane that they're running, that's probably all you're going to do. You're not going to be able to make a pass.
Yep, exactly. You're just going to follow them. Let's allow for some clean air in front of the driver we ride on board with. Trevor, if you could switch to Mike Rasmus, and Kenny, if you could talk us through a lap around this this 3/4 mile speedway.
Yeah, so here we are on board with Rasmus. We'll kind of forfeit here turn 1 and 2 as he's letting Woody Mahan go by, but we'll go down the back stretch here, down into turn 3, generally a relatively shallow entry. And me personally, I want to be right down on this yellow line as Rasmus is. Kind of let the wheel drift out a little bit out to the outside wall here, down into turn 1. Now into turn 1, you can really let the car roll. A little bit of contact there on the entry to turn 1. You can really let the car roll and hardly use the brakes and let the momentum kind of go into the banking and roll through turn 1, down again into turn 3. Let's see if we can have a better entry into turn 1 this time. So down the front stretch here, and again, you can have a nice wide entry and really arc it down, but you got to get it down, and you can see Rasmus is really struggling with a tight condition. You can see it on entry.
Yeah, absolutely. He is tight getting into the corner, and you can see he's turning that wheel quite a bit through the center, and then as he goes to get back on that throttle, he's getting that dreaded push loose condition and is coming off of the corners with the wheel spinning, and he's having to correct that, especially up off of turn 2.
Yeah, Rasmus obviously hoping for a caution to come out in the next couple laps or so. It's still Brian Yazik out front, then you got Jeff Ward. Oh, that was a big wiggle out of the 68 machine.
He actually slammed into the wall that time. He had pretty heavy contact. That might cause a little bit of damage for him. He's really struggling all of a sudden.
I see you got Jonathan Cogswell just behind him. This is, of course, for 4th position. And then Scott Eckrich looking to make a move here into the top 5 as well.
He's being passed by drivers that are essentially on the same tire strategy as him, so this is not a good sign for him. It's showing that he's really worn out those front tires, maybe the rears as well, a lot more than his competition.
Yeah, even Woody Mahan passed him with not a whole lot of, I'm going to say, effort required from the driver of the 84 car. He kind of just looked to the inside and got the position. And boy, he's continued to just pull away by about 2.5 seconds there over Mike Rasmus.
He's losing most of his time in the turn 1 by taking that wide entry. He's just not able to get the car down like everybody else is. And some of that, I think, is a little bit strategy on his part, just trying to get a straighter run off of turn 2, but he's losing so much time doing it.
You see James Kahula down on pit road. This, of course, shouldn't be a surprise to anybody up and down the pit road on top of the pit boxes because, of course, if you don't stop, your fuel window is about 63 to 65 laps. So James obviously getting some added benefit by all the caution laps we've run over the course of about 4 cautions. And, oh, boy, this was about the worst time this is going to come out for James.
Well, how will this work, though? Because he did come in before he was lapped, so will he be able to get back around everybody?
I would view it as where is the 55 car right now, and he's coming out of turns 3 and 4 down the front straightaway. We're going to have to watch pit exit here, sorry. He's going to beat the pace car, so I guess he'll just be 1 lap down. We'll have to see what happens. He'll probably get the wave around, but you know he's going to have to forfeit all that track position he would have had to begin with.
Yeah, more than likely, everybody's going to pit here, and he will be the first car behind the pace car, and then get the wave around from that. But like you said, he's going to be at the tail end of this pack here when we go green.
That right there is a cause for caution. Big Joe Hazard gets into the outside wall, ricochets off that, and then back into the inside one. We can take a view here now down pit road. You got pretty much, like you call it, JR, everybody coming down pit road. They've been out on these tires for quite a long while, so pretty much no reason to stay out there unless you're James Kahula.
Yeah, when you have 10 sets of tires in the pits, you know, that averages about every 20 laps, so you definitely want to pit when you've been out there for longer than that. Like I said, you're already losing half a second just over a 10 to 15 lap run.
And luckily, this will stop the bleeding for Greg O'Berry. He was still able to be in the top 10 when that caution came out. So I think it's a net loss overall compared to where he was running, but not too bad. And he's still in contention. And he had to have been running practically on fumes when that caution came out.
Yeah, definitely. That was a pit stop out of necessity, not really on wanting to undercut the field. We're going to take a quick break now that you've seen the entire pit stop strategy kind of cycle itself out. Brian Yazik's still going to be your leader. We'll be right back after this.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back. You're watching the Virtual Grip Network and its coverage of the Todd Kirkwood Memorial 200 live from Richmond Raceway. Pretty Good Racing League looks to wrap up another season. Jeff Ward, the championship hopeful, but his championship rival Brian Yazik starts to his inside on the point on this restart. We've had about 4 or 5 cautions thus far into the race. A whole heap of cars representing Todd Kirkwood recently passed away at the age of 43, just last Friday, in fact. So a lot of drivers still kind of getting over the pain and grieving with that. And you can see defending last week's race winner, in fact, Brian Yazik, on the point here with that fantastic red Yazza sandwiches and more paint scheme. iRacing pace car goes down pit road. Brian puts his foot on the loud pedal, scoots away from the field. We'll see how this race goes on. This will be really good because this is the first time we've seen probably most of the field on fresh tires since about the start of this race, guys.
Yeah, it'll be a great judge of seeing where everybody is with speed. Just seeing we've got a lot of guys that were not there at the initial start. A lot of changes have happened, so now we're going to see who does have that lap time that we talked about, Austin.
We'll also see what these guys can do. I mean, Jeff Ward now has the opportunity that he's basically on Brian Yazik's rear bumper for the entire run to see what he can do in terms of tire conservation. So you can see Norman Pelletier extremely loose down the back straightaway. Battle on your screen right here. This is Jonathan Cogswell. This is for the 5th position. He's got Mark Herzog in the 57, his outside. And then he's got Isaiah Dupre and then Greg O'Berry. Greg, probably one of the faster drivers here tonight. Really put back into the field pretty deep there just by tire strategy and staying out over the course of the last couple of cautions. You can see Jonathan getting a little bit loose and then tight there off of turn number 4. Allows him, he's just basically getting swamped there by 3 or 4 different cars by the time he goes into the next corner.
One thing I like to note really quickly, sorry JR, one thing I like to note really quickly, Scott Eckrich, I think he got a pit lane penalty of some sort, had to let the entire field by, so he's way back down in round 15th at the moment. Yeah, so he'll have to make his way back through the pack. But what were you saying, JR?
Oh no, just to Jonathan there. He did a really good job. Like I said, he got loose and then extremely tight. He backed out of it to avoid contact with Mark Herzog there because Mark was not going to give him any more room, and in doing so, it kind of hurt himself really bad. He's lost tons of spots here. We continue to watch him on the outside, which is not apparently where his car needs to be because it's not hooked up right now.
Certainly not. And just for you folks at home to kind of realize, that's Jonathan in the 28 car just ahead to the outside of Mike Rasmus. And that yellow dot way up there, about 5 or 6 cars in front, that's Mark Herzog. That's who Jonathan was racing with before he had that loose, tight condition off turn 4. That's how many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots at least he's lost just in the last 3 laps or so.
He's just now starting to equalize. We see Mike Rasmus trying to make the pass on the inside of him here. He's still able to hold on. Oh, car getting loose up off of turn 2. Looks like the 86 car. Yep, Debris.
Yeah, Kenny, these cars are so hard, too, to correct when you come off the corner sideways like that. And especially, too, you have to drive it. Really, you have to baby it for the next couple laps to just hope that your tire temps come back down.
Yeah, they are tricky. And really off of turn 2, you see all these cars sliding. With how it flattens out coming off of turn 2, any car is tricky here at Richmond coming off of turn 2, and these Cup cars are just that much more tricky. The sliding's a little more predictable coming off of turn 4, but it's just hard to get the car to go straight again just because that whole stretch is not straight. So each exit of each corner has its own challenges here.
Bunch of different battles on your screen. You can see, looks like that's the 56 car Norman Pelletier. Look at the inside of James Kula just behind him is championship defending winner Scott Eckrich. Then you got Thomas George behind him. Thomas is currently 27 laps down, so probably should be up there fighting with those guys, but obviously he wants to be the first car highest up in the order to get that lucky dog. But he's got 2 guys to go through, of course, Joe Hassert, Grant Brown. Luckily for Thomas O'George, Joe has left the session, so he's basically just got to get, I don't know, about 40 some or so lucky dog cautions, and then he gets to be on the lead lap.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough feat for sure, but we have had a lot of cautions here. I think things have gotten settled down a little bit better than what it was at the beginning of the race. Guys are kind of racing where they should be at the moment speed-wise, and we're seeing passes still occur on this track, but it's getting harder and harder to do, Austin.
Yeah, the more your tires get worn out, JR, the more it continues to get harder to go ahead and put a move on someone, because even though both your tires are more worn out, it's more unpredictable in terms of how much the car is going to slide, and then when you do start to slide, how much is that other guy starting to slide, because you could pinch a guy that's going to wear out his rear tires, but it's also going to wear out your front tires because you're having to put more wheel into the car for longer as you go to the outside.
I spoke about at the beginning of the race. It sounds very easy to take care of your tires here and control that wheel spin, control how much you're turning that wheel, but when you're racing somebody and trying to make that pass, it is really difficult because you're trying to overdrive the car to get around that guy, and he's doing the same thing, and in doing so, it can create a big problem. A lot of times we see wrecks from that.
The first two drivers out on track, Brian Yazik in first, Jeff Ward in second. The two drivers battling for this Season 2 championship have gapped the rest of the field by the tune of about 2 seconds, the first driver of which is Woody Mahan in the 84 car. Then you got Michael Krobach in the 72, followed by Greg O'Berry in the 97. Greg has been on quite the charge since that last cycle of pit stops. So see just how much further Greg can get up through the field. He was really hurt by not taking any tires until the most recent caution. So that's why you saw the huge jump in performance, then large dip, and now a resurgence for that 97 machine.
A heck of a battle going on for fifth, back to around 10th place. A couple laps ago, Drew Carroll basically shunted Mark Herzog out of the way and gained that spot, but in doing so, he moved himself up the track, and Greg O'Berry passed all of them, and he's starting to run away from this group. Cody Erdman's in the mix, and Mike Rasmus trying to get in there too. So these guys not playing too nicely right now, being quite aggressive.
Yeah, and then further back through the field, you got Adam Jersky trying to defend on the outside of Jonathan Cogswell, and just behind those two drivers is Scott Eckridge. Scott's looking to just pounce on whoever gets the advantage here. Looks like it's going to be Adam Jersky once again. You see Scott Eckridge just barely get around there. The 28 car of Jonathan Cogswell once again running that fantastic Davey Allison throwback ski as Adam gets in the wall.
Yeah, I was watching Scott go by him there on the front straightaway. The one thing I like about Scott is you don't see his car moving around a whole lot. He's being very controlled with how he is driving that car at the moment, and he's kind of letting this race come to him after having that pit stop penalty that we talked about. He's in no hurry to go to the front, but now that the tires are getting worn, he's got a lot more grip than what a lot of these guys have. You see him go to the inside of Mike Rasmus here in 1 and 2.
Yeah, he continues to catch up to these guys. Whoa, 2 cars down to the inside. Cody Erdman, Mike Rasmus. No, it's Drew Carroll, excuse me.
Wow, well, I can't believe those guys saved those cars.
Yeah, that looked ugly from on board, but they did a great save there. We're staying under green.
Let's see if we can't get a replay here then the next couple laps. Both those drivers going to lose a lot of spots. This is what happened between those two drivers. This was coming off turn 2. Looks like Drew just gets a pretty good run as Cody gets loose there.
Yeah, Drew got a great run. Looked like Cody got tight in the corner, in the center of the corner, and then loose on corner exit, and his car was not all the way up against the wall like Drew kind of expected. So the two just came together there, but a fantastic job once again by both of them to not bring out a caution. The bad thing is they probably had to lock down their front tires a little bit to avoid the wall, and in doing so, they're going to have fun the rest of this run trying to keep their car turning.
Scott Eckridge trying to make a move here on Mark Herzog. This is for the 6th position. Scott looks to the inside, throws it in there in the turn number 1. Going to slide up the track just about a foot or two, but Kenny, it's pretty crucial sometimes just to go ahead and maybe dime in the corner just a little bit if you charge the entry.
Yeah, it really is to just get a nice straight exit off the corner. One other challenge about Richmond too is when you're on the inside trying to make a pass on someone, typically you kind of have to drive it in a little bit deeper on the brakes, and if you're at least like me and run a lot of rear brake in your car, that can become kind of sketchy. So a lot of times when I'm in traffic, I'll actually move my brake bias forward a little bit if I'm about to make a pass, so I can have that stability underneath me, make the pass, and then move the brake bias back towards the rear again, so I can have a nice pace by myself. But it's really easy to let the back end slip out from underneath you on corner entry when you're trying to make a pass on someone.
Speaking of passes, you were talking about making a pass to the inside. Mike Rasmus just went around the outside there of Mark Herzog. That was for the 7th position, so go ahead. Whoa, look at Mark get really loose down the front stretch. That's going to hand Adam Jersky a position going into turn 1. And now look at Jonathan Cogswell. He's going to pounce to the outside. Whoa, he gets loose. Mark just kind of ran him up out of room.
Yeah, that was really close. Mark not having a good lap here, and he's aggravated him. Yeah, he did not like that, and this is a place where you can make some contact when somebody gets you a little bit aggravated, Austin.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, we've raced along with Mark sometimes, and he's one of those drivers, it's not the hardest to make him a little bit tense inside the race car, and boy, if he's feeling it, he's going to let you know one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got his car back going again. He has the position on Jonathan here. It does look like Jonathan has better turn through the center, but Mark is able to get a little bit of a better run up off of the corners. He's slower through the center here as we watch, and he's going to get the car turned down. He's going to fight Jonathan on corner exit here and prevail before they get to turn 3.
Now, I'm sure you guys can attest to this. When Mark's got a fast car, he is scary good. I mean, just flat out scary.
Yeah, he is, and one of the places that he's the best at is at the flatter tracks, and like we said, only 14 degrees of banking here, so this kind of suits Mark's driving style.
Well, especially going into turn 1, the way the banking just kind of, you know, it isn't really in there the whole time you go into the corner. You kind of have to just imagine the car is going to catch it. And Mark's got just a way of knowing how to get the car to turn on basically the surface of a parking lot.
And Mark is also really good under the brakes, so if he decides to play offense or is able to, like on restarts and things like that, he's been able to really gain a lot of positions because he's been able to be aggressive on the brakes and make that work.
Austin, I think we've seen this action before, Cody Erdman being behind Mark here, so we'll have to see if they're able to play a little bit nicer than earlier. We do know that Cody tried to make a pass on the inside prior, and it looks like we have a caution on the speedway, actually.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, but I heard a giant crunch into the outside retaining wall down the front stretch. So just pretty much below the commentary booth. We'll have to see what that was and who was involved in that. But you can see pretty much the top 10 looks to be intact. We'll see if we can't get a replay here for the cause for caution.
Yeah, so this was just a self-spin from Drew Carroll. He just kind of looped it. I thought maybe he had gotten some help from his teammate Dupre behind him, but no, it was just a self-spin. He looped it around, a little bit of contact right there, but not much else doing there. So it looks like everybody's going to be okay, but this is going to reset everybody here, and I would suspect everyone will come down pit road for 4 fresh Goodyears.
Yep, Kenny, you called it like hitting a nail on the head. Almost everybody comes down pit road. Thomas George chooses to take the wave around. He should get the lucky dog as well. So we'll see what he can do this time by. Luckily for him, Grant Brown had a connection issue. So Thomas, the first car, 1 lap down.
So at this point, we'll have about 95 laps to go when these guys exit pit lane. So still easily a 2-stop race from here on out.
Brian Yazik can easily beat Jeff Ward off pit road. Not a whole lot of position changes. These guys come back off pit road, so you can see pretty much everybody just, you know, hitting the pit box right, getting that virtual pit crew to change all 4 tires, and then go ahead and put the fuel in the car and get out of there as fast as possible. Not a whole lot of position change. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Todd Kirkwood Memorial 200 presented by the Virtual Grip Network and the Pretty Good Racing League. We're here to wrap up the season 2. Looking right now, Jeff Ward is going to take the championship, but his rival Brian Yazik is out front doing everything he can to make sure he gains as many points as possible. Todd Kirkwood was a trucker, husband, and father of 3. He passed away very suddenly last Friday at the age of 43. Todd was the founder of Pixelated Sim Sports, an iRacing team that did compete in the Pretty Good Racing League. He was often the first to chip in when someone needed sponsorship and loved creating logos for the iRacing community. Todd was a friend of many in the Pretty Good Racing League and will be deeply missed. And unfortunately, due to our own incompetence, we missed the lap 86 moment of silence. So on lap 186, we'll be silent up here in the booth for Todd.
Of note there on the pit stops, Jonathan Cogswell had a pretty long pit stop, maybe some damage repairs. He's down to, looks like about 18th spot. Norm Pelletier, Isaiah Dupre, also with decently long stops, so they are at the tail end of the lead lap.
Thanks, Kenny. We're going to see the iRacing pit car pull down pit road. Brian Yazik and Jeff Ward complete the front row. Woody Mahan, Greg Goberry, Scott Eckridge, defending title championship winner. Scott Eckridge in 5th, so we're going to have to see how this plays out. These guys going to be super racy now that the inside line and outside are just chock full of fast cars.
Jeff didn't get a great start on the front straightaway, but he made it up on the backstretch there. It looked like Greg O'Berry got loose going into the corner. I'm not sure if he had help or not there, but that was a big wiggle.
It looked like he had help. Scott was about a half a car width up the track, and you can see, yeah, apologizing over the in-race chat there.
And now O'Berry's in that hornet's nest, and we know how fast his car is, but he needs to keep a cool head here and get back through this traffic. Long ways to go. And he has the pace to get through, but you can see how treacherous it is back there as Herzog loops it in a huge accident.
That was a hard lick there for Thomas George. I don't know who else was involved. You see Cogswell, then Alberico slow down for the accident. Allow Mark to get going. Oh, loose again. He's got some suspension damage on that car.
Yeah, that one happened at the exit of turn 4, right at the very exit of turn 4, and didn't finish until we were almost in the turn 1.
Yeah, this is a view on Mark's roof. Thank you, Trevor, for all these fantastic views. And I think that was Mike Rasmus who was put in the wall by Mark there.
There was John Wilco, actually. John Wilco and Thomas George, who was laps down, both involved in that.
This is riding on board with John. And yeah, just nowhere to go. Tries the last second to put his car back up the track. And at J.R. Kennedy, there's just no way of telling where that car is going to go when it's in a slide like that.
Yeah, there's no way to for sure know, and then by the time you think you know what's going to happen, it's usually too late if you've made the wrong decision. And unfortunately for Wilco, just nothing he could do there. I don't think there was a right or wrong decision there. It was either run right into him or try to go high, and he tried to go high and unfortunately got into the front stretch wall. Looks like he does have right front wheel damage there.
See Jonathan Cogswell and John Wilco going down pit road. Pretty much everybody else, though, on the lead lap staying out. You see Thomas George back down on pit road. Of course, he was one of the drivers involved in that. And, boy, you know, he just got one of his laps back. So we'll have to see what kind of damage he has and how fast he can get that hot rod repaired and back out there. Thomas, usually one of the faster drivers on these short tracks. But this, of course, break in the action gives us a moment to talk about some pretty good deals here going on tonight. Patriot Media and Marketing Services will be donating $1 per car in attendance tonight to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. They were going to be the original beneficiary of this race before Todd's passing. Like I said, really nobody saw that coming, so I really hit the entire community hard here. And then also $1 extra will be donated per car running a Patriot Media scheme. So pretty cool deal there. Lots of good money going to a fantastic organization, really trying to just invest in making sure we know what makes MD tick and how to, kind of rid the earth of that before too long. And then, of course, the winner of this race earns iRacing credits in the dollar amount equal to their starting spot. That's, of course, thanks to drivertees.com. Alternatively, that driver can pay it forward and pass their donation along to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So pretty cool deals here, regardless of what side you're on in terms of winning or not, thanks to Patriot Media and Marketing Services. And all this is made possible tonight by them and, of course, by Grant Brown, driver of the 41 machine.
As we have another pace lap going here, Brian Yazek's really, he's really controlled the pace ever since he's gotten into the lead, and quite frankly, I'm kind of surprised that Jeff Ward has not been able to get around him. He's tried everything. He's kind of tried diamond lines and different things and has not been able to make that move. And I don't think he's really cranked up his aggression quite yet. I think he's just, kind of trying some things, but he's got Woody Mahan and Scott Eckrich right behind him. This is the furthest up that Eckrich has been all night, so he might have to kind of start pushing some buttons here if he wants to get the lead before somebody else snags second away from him.
Well, to be honest, Ken, I mean, when you're in this kind of championship position that he's in, all he needs is a top 20 finish. All he has to do is keep that 55 car somewhere in his windshield, and he's pretty much going to come home with the title. And when you're this close to a title of this kind of caliber, you got to be thinking more big picture than just short term, just winning the race. So I'm sure Jeff Ward would like to win this race, as you always do. But, at this point, I've been in his shoes. You just got to keep that guy behind you in your windshield and then make sure you can just clinch the title.
Well, officially James Krahula is out, which would make it to the worst position that I believe that the 9 car can finish is 20th. So I think he's pretty much set to go now.
Oh, gets a sloppy restart there, Woody Mahan looking to pounce. Scott Eckrich looks to the inside. He'll have to be really careful, though. He's got Mike Rasmus to his inside as well. We'll see what Jeff can do on the high side. Looks like he's going to go ahead and clear the 84 car, Woody Mahan. Woody running a little bit different schema tonight. Usually he runs a Mahan Speed Laboratories car, but he wants to go ahead and donate another $1 there to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So he's running it. Whoa, he gets into the outside wall.
Oh man, yeah, he just got loose on corner exit and tried to correct it. Unfortunately, Scott Eckrich was there and it sent him back into the wall, I believe. But yeah, another upsetting run for Woody Mahan. He had a great run going tonight, had a lot of speed, guys.
Yeah, looking to go ahead and make sure Grant Brown and Patriot Media and Marketing Services have to donate an extra $1 to MDA. Unfortunately for him, his night going to end a little early. This is, thank you, Trevor, for the awesome views as always. This is a replay here from the top down. Yeah, it just gets loose, and this is a lot of good cars involved in this one.
Oh, you see Jordan Harnish there coming by and smacking into Woody Mahan there. He's had a quiet night, but he'll have a decent amount of front-end damage from that. And just like that, Mahan's night is probably pretty much over.
Yeah, you watch this replay when he gets loose up here. We're watching on board with Jordan Harnish, as he just had nowhere to go from the smoke, not able to see which direction was clear. But yeah, Woody Mahan just getting loose off the corner, and these cars with those rack and pinion steering boxes, you do not have to overcorrect the wheel very much at all for it to do that violent twist and back into the outside wall like we saw there. It's just one of the conditions that this Gen 7 car has, and guys are continuing to try to learn and program themselves to be able to drive it during a corrective action like that.
Gentlemen, it looks like we have a split on the pit decision. Bunch of guys staying out and a whole heap of guys electing to stay down on pit road. Jeff Ward looks to be the first driver off pit road with fresh tires. Adam Jerski is the last driver to stay out. So we've got three drivers, that stayed out on the racetrack. So their tires going to be about 10 or so laps older than everyone else's green flag, at least.
Yeah, we'll have to be careful of this. I think they'll be okay for a few laps at least, but they got to hope that, like what JR was talking about earlier, is that we get a little bit of a run, but not enough for them to lose their track position, and then everybody else pits again. And these drivers pitting right now, they still have to pit, I believe, one more time. Yeah, one more time. So, yeah, I don't know. A little bit risky to stay out with how many tire sets are in the pits. It's kind of just the easy play to just keep pitting.
Yeah, exactly right, Kenny. That's a lot of guys making that decision, like you said, coming in getting those tires. They got plenty of sets left. What these guys in the top 3 positions are going to hope for is for at least a 10-lap run here to where they're able to hold their positions. If they can hold their positions for that 10 laps, that's when the tire fall off on the new tires is going to go away, and it's going to kind of equalize with those guys up front. Then they'll be able to kind of hold their position. But yeah, it's going to be tough in these first 10 to 15 laps.
You say that, JR, in the last couple of green flag laps put on by Adam Jerski, at least, I mean, he pulled a 23.2. His fastest lap of the race is a 22.5, and I've seen a lot of 22.5s today, so it's going to be hard to hold off drivers when they're a whole 0.7 of a second faster than you. We'll see what these top three can do, but it might just be Jeff Ward's race to lose at this point if he can make his way up through the field and be efficient about it. It's really hard to pass here. That 0.7 of a second difference is per lap is going to do you well, but you can't just be foolish with it.
Yeah, you're going to have to be smart, and as we saw in the last restart, if you have new tires, it's going to take a couple of laps for those tires to come in. It usually takes 2 or 3 laps for you to get the temps up enough to where you can drive it at optimal speed. Before that, you're going to have a little bit of wheel spin and loose condition, especially on corner exit. That's what we saw a little bit with Woody Mahan during the last run.
And think about it from this perspective, guys. Let's pretend you pit and nobody else in the field pits. There's only 13 cars left on the lead lap. So worst case, you'd have to pass another 12 cars to get back up to the front, which is really not that bad when sometimes we have fields of cars where you can have to pass 30 cars in order to get your track position back. So yeah, I think pitting is going to have to be the better play.
iRacing pace car makes a sharp left turn down pit road. Scott Eckridge trying to eke there just ahead of Brian Yazik. The two put their foot down pretty much at the exact same time. You look at Mike Rasmus, he goes to try and tuck down to the inside of Jeff Ward. He shoots the car up to the outside around, trying to get around the high side around Adam Jerski. We'll see what he can do with those 4 fresh feel-good tires.
Yeah, he's going to charge into the into turn 3 on the outside. He's staying pretty even with Jerski, but looks like he's going to have a little bit of a better run down this front straightaway. Going to clear him before he gets to turn 1.
Yeah, Kenny, those 4 new tires just allowed Jeff to get on the throttle just a hair earlier than Adam, and he was just able to clear before they got more than halfway down the front stretch. And now Jeff can put his sights on defending champion Scott Eckridge, and then we'll see what he can do with Brian Yazik in first.
You see Yazik there, he does have a decent gap back to second place, and he does have the clean air and the control of the race, which he obviously doesn't want to give up on that. You see Jeff Ward actually trying to look towards the outside. He's been doing a good job of looking to the outside and using it on the restarts like we saw him do against Jerski. He's done a really nice job running that high line when he's been forced to. And now these 3 are kind of breaking away from the pack. Ooh, Greg O'Barry, see them there in the background, really loose off of turn 4.
Yeah, him peeling there out of a hornet's nest. He went down to the inside trying to gather that loose race car back up. He deposits himself into another hornet nest there. That's for the 7th position. He was trying to race with Mike Rasmus, Adam Jerski, and Drew Carroll for what would have been the 4th spot. So Greg doing a well of a job to save that car, barely just able to avoid Michael Krobach, and now he's got his eye to pray, trying to breathe down his neck as well.
Greg's trying to get back to the front. He knows he has a fast race car, kind of had some unfortunate contact on one of the restarts that sent him to the back. So he's in a hurry to get back up there. These laps are starting to count down, only about 70 to go.
Yeah, speaking of laps counting down, we've been watching the laps tick by, and Jeff Ward is, I mean, he's caught Scott Eckridge, but he hasn't really done a whole lot to go ahead and pass him. I'm starting to feel like this tire call was the right decision for the top 3 guys.
Yeah, you could stay out in front of those guys for about 10 laps and let these tires equalize. Now, they're not going to equalize completely, but if you get to where Jeff Ward is only about 1 to 2/10 of a second faster than you, it's going to be extremely hard for him to pass you, even with those fresher tires. So that's kind of what these guys have done. Scott's placing his car exactly where he needs to get the best run up off the corner. He's taking that late exit and coming off straighter. Jeff continuing to kind of dive in and take a wider exit up off the corner to try to get that run, but you can see right there, Scott's got plenty of tire. He's able to pull away slightly down the straightaway.
I was going to say, too, the gap between Scott and Jeff has remained pretty consistent, at least going into turn 1. But if anything, those 2 guys have gotten closer and closer to Brian Yazik the last couple laps, so I'm not too sure that Scott Eckridge doesn't have some extra pace in that car as well.
Scott's one of the best at conserving his tires, so he does it better than everybody. We see it every week, especially on the road courses. He doesn't have to come through the field quickly. He waits until the tires get heated up and start to wear, and then that's when he starts to make his moves. So he does a great job of controlling that, keeping the tire temps where they need to be and not overdriving that car.
Yeah, speaking of making moves, Greg O'Berry continues to make his way further and further towards the front. He's got clean air ahead of him. He's currently running around in the 7th position. As you can see, Drew Carroll just barely looks to the inside of Adam Jersky, just ahead of Greg. Greg obviously kind of got punted a little bit out of the way there by Scott Eckridge. He was running at about 3rd or 4th position, then fell all the way back to, 12th or something. And then he was back in 4th due to pit strategy, and then just got loose down the front stretch. So he's probably passed the most cars out of anybody today.
He absolutely has, and he's had the speed to do it. It's not just been by luck that he's done that. So he's had a fast car. He definitely wants to do what he can to get that track position back, maybe have a late caution here so he has something to work with and try to win this race.
Yeah, out of all the drivers we've seen been up towards the front since Greg left it, he's probably got the most speed that could possibly challenge, Yazek, Eckridge, and Ward for this race win. Of course, we can't count out Mike Rasmussen. He's named Mr. Consistency for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. He always seems to finish right in that top 5 in the majority of these races. Always finds a way to get himself up there. Even when he doesn't have a fast car or a car that seems like he can compete to win, somehow he gets up there, guys, each and every week.
Yeah, getting up there, Greg O'Berry makes a move on Adam Jersky for the 6th position. Adam not putting up too much of a fight. I think he's kind of just going to slide here in behind Greg and maybe see if he can pick up a couple things.
Yeah, remember, Jersky is one of the other drivers that he's the 3rd of the 3 drivers who decided not pit that last caution. And I have a question for you, JR. With Yazek and Eckridge up front, but on the slightly older tires, do you think it could be a case where Yazek and Eckridge are fine now, but if they start to lose 1 or 2 positions and get put back in the more turbulent air, that could maybe accelerate the tire wear?
Yeah, definitely. Aero's not as huge here on the short track at Richmond, but it does play a part, especially entering the corners. So yeah, if they get back into that turbulent air that these cars seem to create, these Gen 7 cars, it's going to get worse and worse. Right now, Brian has the clean air. He's got the best feeling on the front of his car. Scott is not doing bad either. He has a gap and he's able to run a slightly different line. But if they get 2, 3, 4, 5 cars in front of them, it's going to get a lot worse. And I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing with Adam Jersky here. He's continuing to fall back just a little bit more. Seems to have lost the pace that those top 2 have.
And to be fair to Adam, I mean, he really just kind of got swamped on the restart there. He's been in dirty air ever since. Just kind of put at the wrong place at the wrong time, and guys just barely get a run before he's able to kind of go ahead and recuperate his car back to where he'd like it. So he hasn't had the best luck since the restart, but he's been reeling this thing pretty nice. I mean, he hasn't been overdriving the entry or exit of the corner. He's just really been consistent.
With those guys that pitted earlier, they will, if they decide to stretch the fuel all the way to its longest, they will end up having to pit a lot earlier than the rest of the field if we stay green here. And with the field kind of reduced in size from all the attrition, that could definitely be true.
I mean, Kenny, could they pull the undercut? Would that work to great effect? I mean, we've seen the tires, new fresh tires are faster than older tires, but these things kind of plateau pretty quick.
Yeah, they definitely do. It's just they're gonna, whether or not they want to play that strategy, they're going to have to end up, pitting earlier. And it'll be interesting to see if any of the drivers who did pit on lap 120, if they actually decide to pit when Yazek and Eckridge do, just to prevent the undercut.
They certainly could. I think if you're Jeff Ward, you're pretty much doing whatever you need to have a quiet, consistent day. I think you basically run this car out of fuel. If you're Brian Yazek, I think you've pretty much got to undercut, and you're basically forced to on the strategy that he and Scott Eckridge have. If you're down there in the rest of the field, you can kind of choose whatever you want. You look there on the picture, left-hand bottom part of your screen, that's Thomas George. He is way out of contention. He's just up there. He is about 47 laps down. He's been in 2 large incidents tonight. Just kind of out there running to make more laps.
Yeah, just trying to gain position, trying to unlap himself a little bit in case something happens in these closing laps. Maybe he can gain some positions if some guys get taken out in an accident or something. But you know, back to the pit strategy thing, guys. You know, if I'm the guys that's running like 11th, 12th, 13th, like Rich Jetty, Jonathan Cogswell, Isaiah Dupre, maybe if I'm them, I kind of cut this last run in half. Maybe I pit around lap 160, somewhere around in there, and see if I can catch some of these guys off guard, do that undercut, and if nothing else, you may not be a winning move, but it could be a move to get you up into that top 5.
See Thomas George looking there to the inside of Scott Eckridge, and that's got to be pretty frustrating when you're trying to run down the leader and all of a sudden you've got Thomas passing you in the middle of turns 3 and 4, kind of forfeiting a lap or two for you.
The only good thing about this is that he's about to do the same thing to Brian Yazik, our leader, and when he does that, if Scott times it correctly, he could gain a lot of time on Brian and get a run here. He's not going to be able to, but that was a possibility.
Hey, he certainly looked like he was going to gain a lot when he shot the car down in there to the bottom of the corner. Now it looks like we have a battle for third on our hands. It looks like Jeff Ward is going to have to start defending here from old Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus in the 68 car.
I remember how much we documented earlier that Rasmus was struggling. I mean, he must have really burned off one of the sets of tires that he had and had some contact with the outside wall a couple times and really was struggling there. But now he's kind of had a revival here and looks to be one of the fastest cars on track and was really putting the pressure on the number 9.
Well, Mike's one of those guys. I mean, he might be down and out for a while, but don't consider him down and out for the entirety of the race. He's going to learn and figure out what he's doing wrong and then come back stronger for the second half. And you can see Jeff Ward even honoring Todd Kirkwood there in the rear end of his number 9 machine.
Looks like Adam Jersky might have had a connection problem. I do not see him on track anywhere, so we'll have to see what happens or comes of that, but that'd be a pretty poor ending to a pretty good run for Jersky on a different strategy, but was looking pretty good in the top 10.
Yeah, he certainly was, and he wasn't completely out of this race too. The undercut might have suited him quite well, but he continues to not be seen on the racetrack here, so might be due to some internet connectivity problems for him. And if you're Jeff Ward, you are just loving seeing all this attrition as long as you're not part of it, because right now there's only 12 cars on the lead lap, and most of the cars that are basically in the top 20 have already left the session. So for Jeff right now, he could practically park that 9 machine and still come home with that championship title.
Yeah, definitely good feeling for Jeff. He knows how that's going to end for him tonight. At the same point, once you know that, you want to try to go up here and win this race. Right now, he doesn't have the track position to do that. He is in third, but over 2 seconds behind. And right now, he's trying to fend off Mike Rasmus, who has a great run going tonight.
Yeah, Mike almost got into the left rear of Jeff. I have to imagine at that point it's like, look, you know, I already have the title wrapped up, but I'd rather finish better than worse for the time being. Oh, Mike's going to get loose down the front stretch here. Going to forfeit now. They at least side by side back again with Jeff Ward. Now I got Greg O'Berry on the tail end of both these drivers. You saw Greg make that pass for the 6th position there, and he continues to go ahead and chase down these 2 drivers ahead of him.
Isaiah Dupre was the final car left on the lead lap in 12th place, and he is pitting, so we'll see if that drags anybody else down pit road.
And he can't make it from here. It's just like Jared was talking. He's going to split this last stage of the race, this last stint, if you will, into 2 of them. Oh, you see Greg O'Berry getting pretty close to Jeff Ward.
Yeah, O'Berry has a lot of pace here. He needs to really keep his cool and just kind of set these passes up, but I know he might be getting anxious because he knows those leaders are getting away.
Yeah, you could see him there just trying to squirt that throttle a couple extra times coming off of turn 4. This time by charges it down into turns 1 and 2. Looks like he's going to get a pretty good run there in Jeff Ward, and he just, I don't know if he pumped the brakes there a little bit on corner exit, but he did not allow Jeff Ward to do the old crossover on him.
Dupre's still sitting in the pits, so not sure if he has a problem or if he's just decided to park it, but looks like that is not a strategy move as he's going to go more and more laps down. So 11 cars left on lead lap now.
Well, yeah, he could have been pitting for strategy and realized he has a whole lot of damage on that car. This is a replay, though. Yep, this is why he's been in the pits for so long.
Wow, and that did not cause a caution. Well, no, he didn't really have any contact, though. He is back on track now.
That was crazy. That was a great job, Trevor, up in the production trailer. Of course, Trevor Greenfield, best director in the business as far as I'm concerned. Always gets these great shots, and I don't know how he finds them, but whenever we're talking about stuff, he always just brings it up. So maybe, Trevor, if you could maybe next week show me getting $1 million, we winning the lottery, I'd appreciate it.
In other news, Greg O'Berry has continued to run down third place Mike Rasmus, putting together some really good lap times, basically comparable to the leaders anyway. But I think if you're Greg O'Berry, you go as long as you can until, you know, maybe the leaders start pitting, because obviously on the long run, he has the pace, so he would prefer for this run to go as long as possible.
Well, yeah, he's got the pace right now, and most especially, he's got the tires. That's partially the reason why he's so much faster than everyone else on the racetrack. You can see just on the bottom of your screen, that is his lap times compared to Scott Eckert. You can see more times than not, Greg's been faster.
Still a pretty large gap from first and second back to third and fourth, but I really, you know, with O'Berry, though, if he could time it right, and maybe he could make an undercut strategy work if he pitted a few laps earlier. Who knows?
You know, Kenny, when is the last time that Brian Yazik and Scott Eckert are down on pit road? That was, what, lap 105? They've got to be due to come down pit road in about 4 or 5 laps.
Yes, lap 105 is when they pitted, and everybody else can go about another 15 or so laps. So, yeah, I'd expect to see Yazik, Eckert, and who was the other one that came out? Gursky, yeah. I expect
he's out of the session, so I would,
right.
You know.
Yeah, so I expect to see those top two coming down in really any moment.
Yeah, even you can see, thank you, Trevor, for the pit stop strategy in terms of pit stop lap. On the right-hand side of your screen, that's when all the leaders are last down on pit road. So you can see Eckert and Yazik both lap 105. Then you got Rasmus, O'Berry, Drew Carroll. All those drivers back down on pit road. You can see just 43 laps to go compared to the other drivers. What is it, 65 there? 55? Continues to get closer and closer here to Brian Yazik. This is the closest we've seen any car get to Brian while he's been in the lead. Not even Jeff Ward would get this close, more importantly, too, at the end of a long run. So it could just come down to who blinks first in terms of either making a mistake or coming down onto pit road.
Yeah, and one thing to watch out for, Austin, if we do pit under green, like Kenny talked about at the beginning, this is a tough pit road to get onto. Very slick down there, very easy to overshoot the entry and hit the entry of pit wall. So these guys are going to have to be very careful with that. I can tell you also that coming off a pit road is just as tricky. It's very easy to over accelerate and spin the car out, and not only spin it out, but spin it back into traffic, which can cause a bigger mess on the track and take out several guys that had nothing to do with it. So have to pay attention to that.
Well, Kenny, is it possible, too, the reason we saw Isaiah Dupre down on pit road for a bit of a lengthy stop was because he was either did an unsafe pit entry or was caught speeding on entrance to pit road?
It could have been a possibility. I didn't really look at the replay of his pit entry. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a danger for all of these drivers. And then again, you know, for Yazik and Eckert, if they decide to pit in, then I would assume that at least somebody else on the lead lap will decide to stay out as long as they can. So there will be kind of a gray area there where Yazik and Eckert could potentially be a lap down. And that would be kind of some tense moments for them, because if we got a caution during that period, they'd have to basically take the waiver out.
Running on board here with Brian Yazik. He continues to lead. He's led pretty much most of the laps today ever since he took the lead over from Greg O'Berry when Greg was pretty much out there on the oldest tires in the field, basically about 50 lap old tires. Brian went up there past him. He's been in the lead ever since. He's had a couple of different drivers breathing down his neck, the first one being Jeff Ward. Jeff is currently riding around in the 6th position, and then you got Scott Eckert, now the driver that continues to hound the rear bumper of that 55 car. Brian looking to go back to back.
Yeah, and as we rode on board with Brian there, we're now on board with Scott. Both of those guys, very little movement out of this wheel. You can see them turning the wheel the most right at the apex, but immediately after that, opening the wheel back up. So not a lot of movement in the wheel. They're being extremely smooth with it. Scott obviously putting a little more power down to try to close that gap, but just not happening at the moment. Brian is continuing to do a great job up front.
Yeah, he continues to be, I'm not going to say bulletproof, but I don't know what kind of kryptonite he's got for anyone in terms of what they could possibly have up their sleeve to go up there and pass it, because he's just been putting his car in the exact right place to make sure these guys can't really catch him. And if they do catch him, they certainly can't pass him.
Yeah, it seems like the only place that they're catching him a lot on time is on corner entry and right at the very beginning of the center of the corner. From the center of the corner off, Brian is continuing to pull on these guys, so he's really setting himself up that easy in, hard off type method to try to get a good run and straighten out these corners on corner exit, so he has the most grip as he applies that throttle.
Our two leaders, though, they've got to be looking at coming down pit road pretty much any second here. And of course, we're about 12 laps away from having a moment of silence for Todd Kirkwood. He's the person this race was named in memoriam after, and this is the inaugural one too. So pretty much every race around this time of the year going to be in memorial for Todd, 43 years old when he passed away just a couple days ago, last Friday. So very sudden, all these guys mourning his loss. A lot of drivers in the field carrying on Todd's name on their cars to pay their respects.
Yeah, and once again, that just shows the type of community that you have with these various racing leagues, especially here in the pretty good racing league. It shows what the people mean to one another and the relationships that they've made through the years.
We have had 2 cars in the lead lap come in for pit stops. I believe it was Norm Pelletier and Jordan Harnish is in the pits right now. They were both on the lead lap towards the tail end of it, but we're starting to finally see cars make their final pit stops.
Yeah, Jordan Harnish into and then back off of pit road. One of the drivers that's pretty much dedicated his entire car to Todd for tonight.
We got actually a battle for second place going on. Or no, that's actually the teammate of Rasmus. That's actually Dupre going by Eckrich. My bad. Actually, quite a big gap from first back to second, back to third, and then fourth. It's really gotten spread out more recently.
Yeah, guys, we talked about how Greg had been basically catching up to these two leaders. Both Mike and Greg have pretty much fallen off an entire second from Brian and Scott. So these guys out there in the oldest tires, they've just been out there kind of on a Sunday drive today.
Yeah, and that's where we're watching Isaiah go by here on the fresh tires. This shows you the difference in tires. He's been out there for a couple laps already, and he is so much faster than our leaders who are getting ready to pit. I'm a little bit surprised, guys, that our leaders haven't made their final stop yet.
Yeah, I'm really surprised too. Scott Eckrich, most importantly, I think if you're Scott, even if you just pit one single lap early, the amount of time you gain with Brian on these older tires is gonna pay dividends. I mean, you practically eat up the entire gap in just one lap, and if for whatever reason he stays out there for 2 laps, you're basically gonna increase your lead then by maybe from 1/10 to 5 or 6.
And guys, if these leaders who have 15 laps less of fuel are making it this far, is there maybe a potential for one of these drivers who pitted on lap 120, or even Rich Jetty who pitted on lap 122, to make it the rest of the way on fuel?
Yeah, never say never. That's all I have to say. We've seen some weird stuff happen in iRacing, especially this league in particular. It'd be pretty cool if Rich Jetty came home with the win on that weird off-brand pit strategy, but only time will tell.
Yeah, I'm pretty much floored that these leaders have not pitted yet. But granted, there's probably a lot more off-throttle time as the tires wear out and these cars slow down. So that will help with the mileage. But you see them, how much time they've been losing to the drivers who have made their pit stops. And like what you guys said, if it's a guarantee that these guys do have to pit, I would think that, man, Eckrich could pit a few laps early. He would easily leapfrog Yazik, and at this point, Yazik wouldn't have time to catch him.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if that's the reason we've seen even Mike Rasmus and Grego Berry kind of fall back off the pace. I feel like they might just now be trying to save fuel to see if they can't make it to the end.
And the way that you do that, guys, I talked about shifting earlier. Some guys shifting from 4th into 5th gear. Definitely something you can do to save fuel is to stay in 5th gear. Another thing to do is just let off that throttle early, let the car coast in with very little braking, and then also when you get back on the throttle, get in very easily, and you don't have to go wide open throttle on these straightaways.
Brian Yazik comes across the front straightaway, takes the stripe for lap 185. We're going to be silent for the next lap, lap 186, to honor a true friend and a person everybody really appreciated, Todd Kirkwood, and to show our respects to him. So we'll be quiet and we'll be right back. You can see on the screen. Thank you, Trevor, for that fantastic little blurb about the silent lap for Todd Kirkwood. Todd was the trucker, husband, father of 3. He passed away last Friday at the age of 43. Todd was the founder of Pixelated Sim Sports, an iRacing team that competed in the Pretty Good Racing League. He was often the first to chip in when someone needed sponsorship, and he just loved great logos for the iRacing community. Todd was a friend of many in the PGRL, and he'll be deeply missed.
Cody Erdman in the pits, I think he had some kind of problem, and I just saw Scott Eckridge just completely drift turn 2. He slid all the way around that corner and has lost a boatload of time to the leader, Yazik. I don't know what happened there, but I don't know if it's an odd mistake or if his tires are going away or what, but that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, he's lost an additional second to Scott. Mike had pulled that gap in about 3 seconds flat. He's lost an entire second to Brian since then. Even Grego Berry has lost another pretty much second since the last time we talked about those gaps. You can see Michael Robach out on track trying to see what he can do to get around Drew Carroll. You see Norm Pelletier charging in there.
Yeah, Norm on the fresher tires trying to make up everything he can. If any of these guys are trying to slow down their pace to save fuel to make it to the end, the guys that have pitted are going to be charging extra hard to try to get every single position that they can, make up their laps, and start gaining positions.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. Pay window is about to open any second here for these drivers. Points are going to be paid, and this is the last time to go ahead and see if you can't maximize on points for this season. Jerry, you talked about wanting to go into next season with some momentum on your side. Scott Eckridge continues to lose momentum in terms of catching up to Brian Yazik. He's lost an additional 0.7 of a second. Mike Rasmus has lost about 0.3, and Grego Berry's fallen off an additional 10. So I don't know if all these guys are saving more and Brian Yazik isn't saving as much, or if he's just basically going to run out of fuel. See what happens.
It's going to be close here, guys. If we do not get a caution to end this race, I'm not sure how some of these guys are going to make it all the way to the end. It'll be interesting, but we have seen several drivers back off their pace. Jeff Ward being one of them, who's fallen all the way back to 11 seconds off of this pace. So I got to think that he's definitely saving as much fuel as he can, because he was one of the fastest guys in practice here. So be very surprised to see him this far off the pace.
He's been one of the fastest guys all race. I'm absolutely astounded that all these guys, most importantly, Brian Yazik and Scott Eckridge, can even make it on fuel the rest of the way. I'm completely flabbergasted.
And at this point, we got 6 laps to go now, so I really feel like these guys up front have made their bet and think that they can make it. I don't think if they thought it was going to be that close, I don't think that they would have tried staying out this long.
I think you're right, Kenny. I feel like if they were on the fence or even close to making it at all, They would have had to come back down pit road by some point, unless they're just hoping for a caution and realizing, like, you know what, I'm not even going to try to come down pit road. I'm just going to try to keep lifting and coasting to see if I can bring this thing home in one piece without having to pit again. You can see it's been about 75 laps since the drivers most recently pitted that are at least up in the top 10 or so. You know, Harnish and Pelletier, both those drivers pit about 20 laps ago, but really not making a whole lot of inroads into gaining many points. I mean, you got Harnish and Pelletier, they're 10th and 11th.
Now, this isn't a case where, you know, I know in some cases you start out with a lower fuel number, but once you put fuel in, you can put in a full tank. And I didn't think that was the case in this league.
I didn't think that was the case either. Otherwise, something would have been said about how far you could go on a tank of fuel, but that could be the case. It could just be a fluke with the way they set everything up. You see Brian Yasek, I mean, he's been tiptoeing. He caught up to Jonathan Cogswell in a hurry. Ever since then, he's just been tiptoeing. You can see continues to get loose off the corners. His tires are definitely, you know, screaming out for help. You see Jonathan goes to the top. Brian going to thank him over there on the in-race comms.
A lot of respect from these guys as you come down to the end of these races. Guys that are either a lap down already or getting ready to go a lap down definitely give the leaders a lot of room. So it's good to see that the leader doesn't have his race ruined because of something like that.
Yeah, Mark Herzog was very nice too a couple laps ago to just go ahead and pull down to the bottom of the track on the straightaway. It's not any, you know, kind of wishing some driver would pull off earlier or later for you. See John Wilco, that's the worst thing you want to have happen if you're the leader trying to lap a car. He either cuts off your entrance or cuts off your exit in terms of how much you can open the wheel.
It's the final lap though, guys, and it looks like Yasek just had to make it through turn 3 and 4, and he can coast home from here.
Yeah, Brian Yasek using that Yaz's sandwiches and more paint scheme. Going to go back to back. He continues to win from Michigan International Speedway to Richmond Raceway. Just ahead here is Scott Eckridge. These drivers going almost 90 laps on a single tank of fuel. Mike Rasmus comes home to complete the podium in the 68 machine. Mr. Consistency once again. You can see all these drivers giving a lot of love to the Michigander. Brian Yasek going back to back. What a way to end the season here, but unfortunately he does everything he can the last 2 races to go ahead close the point deficit to championship title you know, winner Jeff Ward, but just not enough bad luck on Jeff's part. Jeff going to go ahead and come home the series champion for the PGRL 2022 year season 2.
Jeff Ward definitely getting the championship for season 2, but Brian has a lot to celebrate. Back-to-back wins, and Austin, I don't think he's going to want to change that paint scheme now.
I don't think so. I was just going to say that too. Ever since he switched to that paint scheme since Michigan, he's been on rails and just winning race after race. I think he keeps that thing until he starts losing. Looking to go ahead and do a Polish victory lap here, probably in honor and memoriam of all those lost, most especially Todd Kirkwood. We just lost him. The entire PGRL did. Obviously, this race in loving memory and in memoriam of Todd. We're going to go ahead and can we skip the iRacing stuff and just have more interviews? Okay, cool. All right, we're just going to go through the finishing order here, kind of just as, you know, we have more people to interview. We'll go ahead and save ourselves some time. Brian Yasek, we just called it here, comes home to win the race. He did a phenomenal job to lead this thing. He probably led about 75% of the race. Scott Eckridge, defending champion, comes home in second. He would have been so close to defending that title, but unfortunately had those motherboard problems at the beginning of the season and just had one too many, literally just one too many bad races. You see Jeff Ward celebrating there on the concrete pad on the infield. Mike Rasmus continues to show why we nicknamed him Mr. Consistency. Finishes to cap off the podium. Brago Berry, so fast all day, probably passed the most cars out of anyone. Unfortunate for him, he'll have to settle for 4th place position. Jeff Ward wins the championship. All he had to do was finish in the top 20. He was pretty much a race contender all day long. Finishes in the top 5. Michael Krobach, by virtue of pretty much being the only person here, wins the Crow and Krobach show. Drew Carroll comes home in 7th. Rich Jetty in 8th. Jordan Harnish, Jonathan Cogswell round out the top 10. Norm Pelletier finishes in 11th, followed by Joe Alberico in 12th. Isaiah Dupre comes home in 13th, followed by John Wilco in 14th. Cody Erdman comes home in 15th, followed by Mark Herzog in 16th. Thomas George finishes in 17th. Adam Jersky in 18th. Woody Mahan, James Kahula round out your top 20, JR.
Yeah, finishing 21st, and that we have Grant Brown in the 41 car. 22nd place is Joe Hassert. Coming home in 23rd is Ricky Harden, and finishing in 24th place and rounding out the field tonight is Pete Baskins.
Because he's the only person in the waiting room right now, we're going to go ahead and talk to Mike Rasmus. Mike obviously coming home in the 3rd position, so why don't you go ahead and take it away, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm down here with Mike Rasmus, and Mike, solid run for you tonight. You pretty consistent all season long, at least when you were participating. And talk about your race. I mean, it seemed like kind of an up and down day for you. You had that one run in the middle of the race that was pretty rough. You lost some spots, had some contact with the wall. What happened there?
Yep, the whole race was pretty rough, to be honest. That middle run, you're right, I just overdrove the car and hit the wall a bunch of times, which doesn't help. I didn't have enough practice to learn how the tires work, so I definitely just overheated them, the right front especially there. And once you do that, same with the right rear, depending on if you're shifting, how you're driving off the corner, you can heat up either one, and the balance just changes for the worse in the opposite direction. And I learned that the hard way. I think both runs I got too tight the first run, too loose the second run, and the last run I just sort of held on. I didn't expect to catch them at the front, but I was just hoping something maybe could happen. Maybe they'd race each other and I'd be there. But there's another P3, so I think that's like, I don't know, six third places this season. So that's pretty good, at least, you know.
Yeah, it sounds pretty accurate. But when you had that contact with the wall, did that adversely affect the handling of the car for the rest of the race at all? Did you have any damage repair you had to do in the pits?
Yeah, I started a couple restarts in the back because I was both runs where I got a little bit of damage each time. The car drove pretty good after it was fixed, but I think it definitely affected the car during the run itself. But that could have also just been me way overdriving it the whole time.
So looking forward to next season. We start out at Watkins Glen, and then we'll head to Daytona, and then we'll head to Darlington. 3 totally different tracks from one another. What's your feeling going into the next season, and do you think you'll be full-time next season?
I'm hoping to make more of the races. I had some computer issues this season that sort of forced me out of a couple of them. In addition to some scheduling stuff, I don't know. We'll see if I can make a whole season, because I think I could finish pretty decent in points if I get at least equal to the drop races. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's really fun driving in this league, and nice to go to all these different tracks and different styles of track too.
Yeah, you'll definitely be one to watch for the championship if you are able to make it to all the races. But regardless, a decent season for you anyway this time around. Who would you like to thank for the run tonight?
Everyone at PGRL and all my teammates, just for being fun to hang out with. It's a good time always, and also you guys for putting on the broadcast.
That was Mike Rasmus, our 3rd place finisher tonight, and I believe J.R. Shepard has caught up with Scott Eckridge. Thanks for talking to us, Mike.
Thank you.
Indeed, I have. Kenny A. Scott, great run tonight, coming home in 2nd place. We saw you had to come all the way from the 24th starting position. Talk us through a little bit of your race and how that car was handling out there, and in particular, were you shifting any at all tonight?
Yeah, I think you can shift. I wasn't, and yeah, it was a little interesting having to come through about 8 wrecks. Got caught up in about 3 of them. Luckily, we didn't get any noodle tires, so we was able to keep going there. I'm not really sure how much damage we had on that the last little incident that I stayed out on, but yeah, I feel like that was the hardest hit we had all night, so I'm not really sure if it hurt anything. Doubt it, because it seemed to be fine. Yeah, the car was just super tight behind somebody. And the more that you tried to make something happen, the more you would just blow the right rear off of it because of how tight it was, ironically enough. So, yeah, we wish I could have did that last run all over again and known that, in the first 10 laps I was behind him. We probably would have made a bigger charge than that, but Yeah, we just got to that point where there was nothing we could do, and obviously Brian knew what he was doing, and ran that race perfectly to where, he knew how hard he had to run just to put us in that dirty air and, not make it something that, he had to defend against at the end of the run.
We speculated on the broadcast that, even though this is not a big track, it is a short track, the aero still comes into play here and kind of affects the way the car drives when you're behind somebody. So, you spoke about that affecting your car. Was there anything that you could have done differently to try to get a run on Brian, or like you said, just save the tires a little bit more?
I think at the beginning he was kind of helping me by running that higher line. I know that chews tires up significantly more, so I was kind of taking that bottom line, and he was kind of giving me clean air. And then about halfway through that run, he moved down, and it just ruined my whole existence when he did that, because I had to slow the car down so much more in the center to get it to rotate that he was just, driving away. And the harder I tried to make up for that, the worse the tire situation was getting. So it's just one of those tracks with this short track package and this next gen car where it's real hard if the guy in front of you doesn't give you a chance to do anything. So if they're flawless in front of you, it's gonna be a struggle.
Absolutely. Scott, we know that you were not really a title contender this season due to some of the issues you had with motherboard problems, I think, at the beginning of the season. That took up some of your races that you could give away throughout this season, but looks like you're probably going to come home third place in points. Still an extremely strong run, a lot of wins. What are you looking forward to going in the next season? Think you're going to be up there contending for that title once again?
Yeah, with the championship challenge, it's going to be pretty tough, but now me and Jeff are both in that same boat, so I guess you never know what happens. But I guess if Brian keeps driving like this, I guess he'll be joining the third of us there, because he's had a heck of a second half of this second season. So yeah, always looking forward to seeing what the next season can bring and see if we can't, bust through that championship challenge and steal one anyways.
Will definitely be exciting to watch, Scott, for sure. You guys put on a great show, and like you said, we're continuing to see more and more guys up front that are becoming dominant here lately. So be a great season to watch next season. Before we let you go, Scott, anybody you want to thank for this race or for your season?
Yeah, as always, the LPM Graphics LC Motorsports Group. I'd like to thank everybody in the league that participated this season that made it as successful as it was, and look forward to continuing into the next season. And then obviously you guys for the entertainment you put on every Tuesday night for us to watch back.
We appreciate it, Scott. Congratulations on your season and on the second place run here tonight.
Thanks, guys.
That was Scott Eckridge, everyone, our second place finisher in tonight's race. And with that, I believe Austin is now caught up with Brian Yazik, our big winner.
Yeah, Brian, we talked about, this Yaza Sandwiches and More paint scheme has been great for you. In the last two races, you've won as many times as there are fives, and your number going back-to-back is quite a feat, man.
It's pretty good. That's damn, dude. You're making us. I have to sit here and do math and try to figure out where you're going. That's pretty good. It's the magical sandwich paint scheme. Dad found out we won last week, and he was all sorts of jacked up. We were hanging out with him over the weekend, and that's all I could talk about was the sandwich car being on pole and winning and stuff like that. So he gets a blast out of it. This is a little bit past his bedtime before, so he doesn't watch him live, but I send it to him after, and he gets a kick out of it. So it's great. The car looks good. Drove fantastic tonight. I don't know if I necessarily did anything amazing, but I just kind of stuck to it. What's been kind of working for me lately, and having to unlearn a lot of bad habits from the old slot cars, from the Gen 6 prior to this. So I think now that's kind of starting to rewire itself to the newer cars, and you're starting to see the results take off.
Yeah, you've gone back-to-back, and you've really had quite the uptick in performance in the second half of this season. This has got to be a huge momentum boost going into Season 3. You might be the third different championship winner this year alone.
Hey, we'll see. We're always good. Kind of like Stewart or Smoke was in the summertime. It took them a while to heat up, and that's kind of how we've always operated. I don't run a whole lot of public races. I don't run a whole lot of practice sessions. I get my Tuesday night when I join to the session. That's what we get. So we have to try to learn a lot of things really quick, and even taking the first run and tossing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. But second half of the year, or the second half of the year, third third. Thank you. We're starting out with Watkins Glen, and we won at Road America. We've been pretty good at the road courses this year, so I'm really excited about that. A couple other good tracks in there, that we tend to do really good at. So it's just if we get a lot of things to line up, but at the same time, Jeff and Scott are both really, 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 really fast. So sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of stealing one away from them so often when XYZ happens. So but we'll just kind of have to see how this final third of the season rolls around, see if maybe we get to Phoenix with a shot at it and do our best from there.
Brian, before we let you go, who do you have to thank for, basically you did everything the last 2 weeks for what you could to try and beat Jeff, but who do you got to thank, not just this week, but the last 2 weeks? You've just been on rails, man.
Well, thank you. Obviously shout out MC Squared Editing, Michael Krobach, graphics, Tyler Graff. He designed that beautiful, beautiful paint scheme that you see out there. Goodness gracious, Sim Racing Apps, longtime supporter, Joy of Driving, Host Node, and Clipping That Apex, Scott McKenzie. But it feels a little weird celebrating a victory, without having Todd around. He was. I know that a lot of people are really sad by his son passing, and it sucks. It shows you how fragile life is. I feel awful for his family, for his daughters. This wins for them. I don't know, if it makes it feel any better. I know Todd probably got a good kick out of watching us run around. So, for trying to too much sadness in the world, and it's sad to see good people go away. Todd was a great friend to the sim racing community. So it left a lot of people speechless, and a lot of people devastated. But to his honor, that's where we go forward, and we go on and put this thing in victory lane, and we head on down the road and do the things that he wanted us to do and have fun with it. Having fun with our pixel cards. That's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. That's why we're here talking to you. That's why we do this every Tuesday night. So it's great to have a good league together and get some people around, and I'm sure we were swapping stories all week about some of Todd's stuff and things he had going on. There are a lot of special paint schemes out there. So just shout out to the Kirkwood family once again. Just we're all feeling bad. We're all feeling for you. Good vibes, good thoughts, whatever that means to everybody out there. And we'll see if we can't go back it up next week. Go 3 for 3 there, eh?
That'd be pretty good. You might have to change your number, though, the 555 car, Brian. We'll see you in New York, buddy.
All right, sounds good, man.
That was a winner back-to-back, Brian Yazik. Really just a phenomenal job here tonight. But speaking about phenomenal jobs, Jeff Ward has been really on rails the entire season. Jeff comes home. He didn't have to do much to lock up the championship tonight, but he did a lot more than he needed to. Jeff, you come home with the championship title. That's got to be awesome.
Yes, man. It feels great. Just all year, we was just focused on consistency. And last week, I thought we were done. Storm knocked out the power. Got back in 9 laps down. Was able to drive back up to 19th or something. But Brian did everything he needed to do tonight to get all the bonus points and try to close the gap. Luckily, was able to get 5th there and seal the deal. But congrats to him on the win. And yeah, man, I'm excited. This is awesome. Race wins are cool, but this is what it's all about right here. Big picture, and we got it done.
Yeah, certainly really showing that true kind of Dale Earnhardt mentality. If I'll get up to the front when I do, I just need to be consistent all year, and that's how he won those 7 championships of his. So great job on your part, though. anything you can kind of learn from this season, go ahead and capitalize. I mean, Scott might, heaven forbid, have a motherboard that works the entire season, and with the kind of consistency Brian's been having, literally just consistently winning this season, especially the last 2 races. Anything you can try to throw at the wall to beat those guys again.
Man, there's some guys really coming alive. Like you said, Brian there, I think that might be his 4th win, which was if it is, that's a season leading amount of wins. So he's found a lot of speed. Scott's probably going to bring it. I mean, he's always fast, but he'll probably be really gunning for us next season and try to make all the races. And then I get to start in the very back with Scott now, shotgun on the field. So this is going to be pretty tough, and I don't get any bonus points. So we'll try to repeat, man. It's going to be tough, but we'll give it our best shot. And, we'll just go in and try to be consistent again, get top 5s. And I think we had 9 or 10 top 5s this season. So that's what it's all about at this point.
For sure. Jeff, before I let you go, who do you have to thank for bringing home the championship this season?
Yeah, man, I just want to mention the loss of Todd Kirkwood. That's a tough one here in our little sim racing community. I remember when I first started real sim racing, back in the day, I ran Todd Kirkwood designs on my car, and we actually won a RSR Asphalt Assault Championship with him on the car. So we're thinking about him. This championship's bittersweet, knowing that we just lost him. So I'd like to thank Mac Bailey Remodeling. He's been on the car all season. If you ever come to Louisville, Kentucky, and you need some renovations or remodeling done, then he's your guy. That's Mac Bailey Remodeling. QU Ultralight Hunting Apparel, been on the car the last 2 or 3 races. Hopefully they're with us next season now, able to get the championship. Lexington Brewing and Distilling. Thanks to PGRL, obviously guys behind the scenes, and my teammates there at LPM and Graphics Motorsports. Thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast all season, and I'll give a shout out to Dad if he's there watching. He's been in the corner too, so thanks to him and just whoever else is out there watching.
Well, thank you for your time tonight, Jeff. Congratulations once again on the championship, man.
All right, thanks guys, appreciate it.
That was Jeff Ward, this season's champion, and I think we're going to have some points on the screen in just a second. We had a real buzzer beater, Michael Krobach doing a good job to get the points in here at the absolute last second. That should be correct. Those are on your screen. Or is it still the old ones? We'll see if we can get those re-updated. We do have some sponsor reads, though, once again. This race was in honor of Todd Kirkwood. He was a trucker, a husband, a father of 3. He passed away last Friday very suddenly at the age of 43 years young. Todd was the founder of Pixelated Sim Sports, an iRacing team that competed in the Pretty Good Racing League. He was often the first to chip in when someone needed sponsorship and loved creating logos for the iRacing community. Todd was a friend of many in the Pretty Good Racing League, and he'll be deeply missed. We'd also like to thank Patriot Media and Marketing Services. They'll be donating $1 per car in attendance tonight to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. They were the original beneficiary of tonight's race before we learned about Todd's passing, and very quickly things were put in place to name this race the Todd Kirkwood Memorial 200. And for all these drivers, including Jeff Ward, James Kahula, Norm Pelletier, numerous other drivers, to put all those Todd Kirkwood Memorial logos on their car. We'd like to thank DriverTees.com. They're going to go ahead and give iRacing credits in the dollar amount equal to the driver that won the race's starting spot. So that pretty cool award goes to Brian Yazik. We'll see if he takes that donation or donates it and pays it forward to Muscular Dystrophy Association. Of course, tonight was made possible by Grant Brown, driver of the number 41 car, and his company, Patriot Media and Marketing Services. Without further ado, though, we'll go ahead and wrap up with tonight's points for the season. Obviously, Jeff Ward comes away with the championship title. And then, of course, you got Brian Yazik just behind him. Third place goes to Drew Carroll. They had some last-minute adjustments to the points where Drew got the Safe Driver Award, which was an extra 10 points. So he just barely beat out Scott Eckrich by a single point. You can see those are the updated points on your screen. Thomas George, he had a really rough night tonight, comes home 5th in the championship standings. Mike Rasmus, Mr. Consistency, finishes in 6th. Michael Krobach, 7th. Shane Parrish, Vincent Crow, Adam Jersky rounding out the top 10. Vincent Crow couldn't be here tonight due to some medical issues, but boy, lots of guys in this top 10 going to be gunning for the championship next season.
Yeah, absolutely, Austin. You always got to look for Jeff Ward and Scott Eckridge to be some of the favorites, but Brian Yazik has proven that he can win races, and he's going to be one of them to look for Season 3 for sure.
And remember, next season, Jeff Ward, I don't think he'll be getting bonus points like as what Scott Eckridge dealt with this season. No bonus points. And he'll have to start in the back with Eckridge as well. So that'll be an added challenge for them. And, if we have drivers like Mike Rasmus show up every week, Shane Parrish, if he shows up every week, he could be a definite challenger. And if some drivers can kind of clean up some consistency issues like Thomas George, Drew Carroll, plenty of challengers for that Season 3 championship.
Certainly, the next PGRL broadcast is going to be next Tuesday, August 23rd from Watkins Glen International. That stream goes live at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. The next Virtual Group Network broadcast is this Friday, August 19th, where the BRL Dirt Street Stock Series takes on the dirt track at Charlotte. That stream goes live at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time. John Hine and I will be on the call there. I'm Austin Belkey. Alongside me in the booth was Jared Shepard and Kenny Kibbe. Our fabulous and fantastic director, as always, Trevor Greenfield in the production trailer. On behalf of all of us and everyone behind the scenes at the Virtual Grip Network, this has been a pretty good production of the VGN. Thank you for watching, and good night.